Hey Eagles fans, this is Mark Lynch, business manager of IBEW Local 98 here in Philadelphia. We are proud to be sponsoring tonight's NFL Draft coverage here on 6 ABC. Go Birds!
It's the biggest, most important draft in the history of this Philadelphia football franchise. It will determine the outcome of the season for the next 5 years and beyond before a down is ever played. Welcome to the JAKIB Media Sports NFL Draft Special. Live on 6abc.com from Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. Presented by First Trust Bank, the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. IBEW Local 98, 6ABC, and United Healthcare. Let's go, Philly. Let's get this draft show underway. EAGLES. Eagles.
All right, welcome in everybody to another edition of the JAKIB Draft Special, brought to you by IBEW Local 98. This time it's a trade edition, Johnny Mac, as the Eagles make another move for another Georgia Bulldog. This time on offense, they trade for Lions running back DeAndre Swift, a Philly native, a St. Joe's prep guy. John, I'll kick it right to you. What's your initial reactions, thoughts about the player and his fit in this Eagles offense?
Yeah, I mean, so much logic to that move when we all kind of saw what was happening in Detroit, and they went up and got, Jahmyr Gibbs so high in the draft at number 12 overall. They signed David Montgomery. It certainly looked from the outside looking in that DeAndre Swift wasn't going to have nearly as big as a role on that particular team. And obviously the Eagles had a need. And, we spent so much time talking about Bijan Robinson. And I tried to explain nearly every day. I mean, there was going to be opportunities to add something somewhere along the line, specifically with the Eagles and the way their running game is structured around Jalen Hurts as the +1. And boy, all you need is a north-south runner who's going to take advantage of that extra space that Jalen Hurts manipulates with the ability to pull the football and scare the opposition defense. And yeah, this is a good fit. I mean, this is a north-south runner. And if you hit the hole against light boxes with this offensive line, you should have some effectiveness. So when you put it all together and you add DeAndre Swift to Rashad Penny and Kenny Gainwell and Boston Scott, and even Trey Sermon, there'll be competition in training camp. I don't know who it's going to be, who's going to be the lead back, but the Eagles are going to be fine when it comes to the running game.
John, correct me if I'm wrong here. Looking at the terms of the trade, DeAndre is going into the last year of his contract. If he were to leave after this year, the Eagles will get a compensatory pick. Is this a 7th-round pick swap? Is that basically what it comes down to, that the Eagles had a trade to get him, or is it more than that, or what do you make of it?
No, it's more than that. With compensatory picks, remember, it has to do with if he does leave, what contract is he getting somewhere else? So, if he comes here for 1 year, runs for 1,500 yards and signs a pretty big contract, you're going to get a comp pick back. But if he doesn't perform and he just signs, you saw it with the Eagles, signs a contract like Terrell Edmonds or Nicholas Morrow, you're not getting a comp pick. So I think a lot of people don't understand. Those are not, guaranteed. There's only 32 of them. And basically they're tied to the strength of the contract you get elsewhere. And that's why the Eagles are getting so many comp picks, scheduled to get so many comp picks in 2024, because guys like Javon Hargrave signed big money contracts, and even Isaac Seumalo and players like that got significant contracts. So that's where that comes in. So they gave up a fourth rounder in 2025, and they swapped seventh round picks this year. So they gave up a little bit, as I said. But, the Eagles I think really people get too focused on the number of picks, and how we said it time and time again. It's not the number, it's about getting impactful players. And the Eagles hope they've done that in this draft. They hope they do it in every draft. And they hope they were able to trade for one here with DeAndre Swift. And we'll see. I mean, it's a big name because he was a bridge pick, as I mentioned with Calais. He was a bridge pick in 2020, just outside the first round. He's got significant talent, but he's never rushed for more than 600. I think 17 was his top year. So he's had some injury concerns as well. But, the Eagles like that committee approach anyway. So, it's sort of like a Moneyball approach. If anybody's a fan of that movie, they know I am. It's not about replacing Miles Sanders. It's replacing the 1,269 yards and 11 touchdowns. If that's got to come from three people, as long as you do it, who cares?
Yeah, and you brought up the injury history. I want to get into that. Last year, DeAndre averaged 5.5 yards per carry and 8.1 yards per reception, which is big. I mean, we struggle with that. I know Kenny Gainwell was supposed to be that guy. Miles Sanders was never really that great receiving the ball out of the backfield. So maybe we'll get some of that out of DeAndre. But what do you make of the injury history? He's 3 years into the league. He's missed games each year. It's always a concern at this position, and the Eagles do take the committee approach. But what do you make of the injuries to DeAndre?
Well, you'd like to see it. I mean, Rashad Penny, even to more
Right.
a significant degree. But I think he's played 13 games every year. So, he misses a couple games every year. But that was the knock on Miles Sanders as well for a while. And all of a sudden he stayed healthy.
Right, you're
For
injury
the
prone
most
until you're
part.
not.
Yeah, exactly. So, you kind of cross your fingers from that perspective. You'd like to see him out there for 17 games and see if he can get it done, and maybe he can. But that's the good part of having depth. And if Penny's available one week and Swift isn't, or vice versa, and Kenny Gainwell's there, and you still have Boston Scott, you should have enough to sort of cobble through it. And Nick Sirianni prefers to use that committee approach anyway. So, yeah, it made a lot of sense on paper. We were all talking about it once Detroit not signed, but drafted Jahmyr Gibbs, that DeAndre was going to be the odd man out there. And the Eagles were able to take advantage of it. Yeah, ironically, he might have had the best game of his professional career against the Eagles in week 1 last year. I think he ran for about 144 yards or something. So he's got talent. And the Eagles will see if he can put it all together. It's not a significant trade like last year with A.J. Brown, but, final year of his rookie deal. You only got to pay him $1.7 million, basically closer to 1.8, but still. And it's a worthy lottery ticket, as Howie would say.
Yeah, and like I hear you say on Birds 365 consistently, Jalen Hurts makes running backs better, and it seems as if DeAndre's skill set is suited right for that style where Jalen has the RPO and there's always the threat there. So I think from that perspective, it seems like DeAndre's skill set fits perfectly with this style of offense.
Yeah, I agree, and that's one of the frustrations that the Eagles had with Miles Sanders at times, and he got better at it last year. Just sort of getting what's blocked on a particular play instead of always trying to kick it outside, trying for the home run. I think DeAndre's more of a north-south runner, so he's going to hit the hole that's there. if a play's blocked for 6 yards, he's going to get 6 yards, and he's still got some explosiveness as well. So um, it makes sense, and that's why, as we said, when the Gibbs pick came across, pretty much everybody was thinking DeAndre Swift to Philadelphia in this league, and sure enough, it didn't take very long.
John, is this enough in the running back room? I know I'll take you back to 48 hours ago, and we talked about it enough on the morning show and all of our other programs. But 48 hours ago, fans were putting the finishing touches on wanting Bijan to Philadelphia. That obviously did not happen. We add DeAndre Swift here on day 3 of the draft. What's your make of the overall running back room? There's a lot of depth at the position with Trey Sermon, Rashad Penny, Gainwell, Boston Scott. Do you think they're still going to be looking to add there, or do you think the Eagles are comfortable with that room now?
No, I think they're pretty comfortable with that room. Once you get down to the 6th, 7th round, it's really just, do you think there's a player there that can potentially impact you? But if you think about, now you add Swift to Rashad Penny, and as I mentioned, Kenny Gainwell, Boston Scott, Trey Sermon. There's not a lot of room at this stage for anybody else. So they would really have to like a running back in the 7th round. And I don't know if that guy at that point, in that late in the draft, and people can point to Isaiah Pacheco, obviously winning a Super Bowl, but I wouldn't count on that year after year after year. I think the Eagles are, Rashad Penny is still the guy. I mean, because we've seen it in small sample size, and by the guy, I don't mean the Eagles feel, oh, he's the lead back. I mean, he's the guy with potential to be a star, because you've already seen it. You've seen it in very small sample sizes, but you've seen him excel at the highest level in the NFL already. So you kind of cross your fingers and hope he stays healthy. But his history is his history. So, it's nice to have all these contingencies, and you have DeAndre Swift, who, again, hasn't lived up to the billing, but he's a competent NFL running back. You have an improving Kenny Gainwell, and then you have old reliable Boston Scott. Anytime they call on him, he seems to produce. So there's enough there, and I think the Eagles are happy with where they are now at running back.
It's a deep room, John. I mean, how many backs do teams normally keep on the roster during the season? Is it 4? Is it 3? I know the game day roster is different, but it seems like there's got to be an odd man out here. Do you have an early take on who that might be?
Yeah, it's usually 4, and probably 3 on game day, to be honest. So Trey Sermon's got an uphill battle, no question about that. If you're going to go Penny, Swift, Gainwell, Boston Scott, those are the guys are going to be there. And because Boston helps on special teams, maybe you can justify activating 4 on game day. Or you can go the route of, the Eagles might say, all right, who's best? Who's the best of Penny versus Swift? And, if it's, you can move on from the other one. These are not expensive players. So
they're pennies by NFL standards.
Yeah. So if you like Trey Sermon, you say, okay, he's a young player, he's got a future, and he could help us more on special teams. When you're on the back end of the roster, I constantly talk to Jody about this, because Jody always wants, 5 big name players. I'm like, if you're at the bottom of the roster, you have to help on special teams. And, certain guys who are used to being star players, like DeAndre Swift was at Georgia, Rashad Penny's been, in college and the pros when healthy. Those guys don't play special teams. So, if they're not going to play on offense, they're kind of glutting up a roster spot. So there's a lot of different ways you can go about it. But from the Eagles' perspective, they have enough on the roster now to feel somewhat comfortable. And I can't say this. You mentioned it already, Xander, and I've said it a million times, so I'm going to say it 1,000,001. Jalen Hurts makes running backs better.
Yes, he does. And this is a good running back to make better. He's versatile, and he's got that pass catching ability, which to me stands out the most. And John, I'll give you a tidbit. You may or may not know this, but Eagles recently signed Olamide Zaccheaus. We talked about it on Birds 365. Olamide and DeAndre were teammates when they won the state championship at St. Joe's Prep right out of Philadelphia, and I was at the game. So I have a picture I just sent into my family group chat of me and DeAndre next to each other. So pretty cool to see him come home and team back up with not only his college teammates from Georgia, but even a high school teammate in Olamide.
And now I got a question to ask DeAndre when he comes back. When we get to talk to him, I'll ask him about the state championship at St. Joe's Prep.
There you go. He won a couple
championship,
of them,
Xander. It's state championship, right?
Yeah, he won state, I think, 2 or 3 times when he was at the Prep. He really changed the whole program. But John, I'm going to close it up here. I'm going to wrap up. I saw some thoughts on Twitter. I was on social media reading some of the reporters' thoughts, and I think it was Elliot Shore Parks from 94 WIP who put out, as it stands today, the Eagles roster might be better now than it was at this time last year. I don't know if that's true. Obviously, we have to see some of these guys play, and it's a long off season and it's a long season. But what's your makeup on the roster and how Howie is rebuilding this thing? It seems like he's on a tear again, and he's trying to repeat, another GM of the year type performance. What's your makeup? What's your take on the makeup of the roster?
Yeah, on paper, he's doing a good job. At some point, I want to criticize Howie, but he's really
it's tough right now, John.
He's really doing an excellent job. But it is projection at this point. We were talking about it before. Everybody's hyped up about the Georgia guys, but we got to see it first, right? I mentioned when we were talking about Calais Ringo. I mentioned, look, the Alabama guys, Devontae Smith, Landon Dickerson, they're entrenched now. All right, that worked. We still don't know about Jordan Davis. The potential is there. We still don't know about Nakobe Dean. The potential is there. Obviously, Jalen Carter this year. Nolan Smith, Calais Ringo, tremendously successful college players. You know what I think of Jalen Carter as a player. He's the one I think is can't miss. But you got to prove it. I mean, it looks good on paper. It looks very good on paper. I get what Elliot's talking about because, Bradbury wasn't here at this stage last year. I'm still concerned about the backs, and they were able to add Sidney Brown. I think, Eagles fans are going to be very impressed with him. He's what the Eagles call a red star player. He's a leadership guy. He's an energy guy, and very much like Nolan Smith. If you saw him talking, just a great leader. Great, you can see it. It comes out pretty evenly, but it's all projection. And in his case, he played it in the box at Illinois, and the Eagles are projecting him to play as a post safety. Can he do it? Hey, that's the secret to it all. That's what, when everybody else is looking at him, oh, that's a box safety. The Eagles are saying, no, we want him to be a post safety. We think he can do that. That's why the scouts and the coaches earn their money, and we'll see how it shakes out.
And that'll do it. Eagles add running back DeAndre Swift for, trade a couple sets. Swap some 7th round picks and a future. John, you said it was a 2025 4th round pick.
2025, yeah.
So that's a couple years out. I'm sure Howie will make it up somehow. And John, before I let you go, you just hung up and you just spoke about Sidney Brown and Keely Ringo. You just got off the phone with them. Did you take anything important out of their press conferences? I listened to a little bit of Ringo, and he certainly sounded like a grounded young man with a good head on his shoulders. What'd you make of their press conferences?
Yeah, really impressive people. It's interesting because, there was so much controversy about Carter for obvious reasons. And, everybody else has been, just tremendously. And Howie was talking about these so-called red star players that the Eagles have. And it involves, leadership and some intangibles and character. And you saw it sort of a lot with Nolan Smith and Sidney Brown. And Howie specifically said Sidney was one of their red star players. You saw it. So that's why I said people are going to be impressed by those guys right away. And we'll see if it translates to the football field.
That'll do it, Johnny Mack. Eagles add running back DeAndre Swift and Keely Ringo earlier in the day. So far, it's shaping up to be a good day 3. Johnny Mack, we will catch up with you later. I believe they still have 4 picks remaining, right? And that kind of goes into some of our conversation. I mean, we talk about the number of picks. They entered with 6, and they still got 4 left.
Yeah, I think they have
3 7th-rounders. Yeah,
3 7th-rounders.
Yep.
I wouldn't expect any splashiness by that point, but you find a gem or two. It's happened in the past. We might have the next Jordan Mailata. Yeah. And
find the next
Australia. I wouldn't count on that, but you cross your fingers.
All right, sounds good, Johnny Mack. Thanks for the hit. Get back to the work down there at the NovaCare Complex, and thank you for checking in.
All right, thanks, Andrew.
That's John McMullen live from the NovaCare Complex. He just hung up with Eagles draft picks Keely Ringo and Sidney Brown, who I think both are going to be great additions to the backfield and have a chance to make an impact this season. But to wrap up this show, Eagles did trade for Philly native, my guy from St. Joe's Prep. I actually just said it. I have a picture on my phone I sent to the family group chat of me with DeAndre at the state championship. Good versatile back added, and looks like Howie just keeps on rolling. So dare I say, road to Vegas in 2024. We will see. That'll do it, Eagles fans. Thanks for tuning in to the JAKIB Draft Special, a trade edition of the JAKIB Draft Special, brought to you by IBEW Local 98. We will be live again after the 6th and 7th round picks, depending on the schedule and how Johnny Mack is talking to the press conferences and with Howie speaking and all that. So we'll be live later this evening. Catch you on the flip side.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wild wood days.
Score and save in southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer 3 major services, the first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.